morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed Australia-wide forecast update for Tuesday, the 6th of May 2025. A lot to crack through today. We do have showers and storms expected across Australia's east coast, which is what we're going to get stuck into first, after some tropical moisture is expected to develop into potentially one, if not two, tropical lows in the Coral Sea later on in the forecast period. But let's talk about that moisture along the New South Wales and southeast Queensland coastline. You can see over the next 14 days some respectable rainfall accumulations can be expected, especially along the New South Wales coastline, but also stretching up into southeast Queensland. We could be seeing totals over the next 14 days up to 150 millimetres in some regions. Now, a lot of this has got to do with high pressure systems and low pressure systems next to each other in the Tasman Sea, funneling those showers ashore into New South Wales, and I'll get to the specifics of those in just a second. But later on into the forecast period, like I mentioned, tropical activity in the Coral Sea could drag up some rainfall from the southeast into the Queensland coastline, which will likely happen into the second or the third week of May, which we're rapidly getting close to, by the way. The year is absolutely flying by us. Anyways, let's talk about the forecast right now. You can see on the satellite picture not an awful lot going on for New South Wales. A couple of drops of rainfall around the Whitsundays this morning for the Queensland side of things. Starting things off though with New South Wales, you can see over the next kind of 2 weeks or so, the rainfall is sporadic. It's here and there, hit and miss. You can see throughout the next 2 days, rainfall not really expected, and this continues out into Thursday, where a few showers will then begin to pipe up along the east coast between Wollongong up to Newcastle and Taree. We'll likely see some slightly heavier falls around Newcastle through mid-morning on Thursday, accompanied by some stronger wind gusts. These showers will then creep further up the coastline, where moderate rainfall can be expected north of Kempsey through Coffs Harbour and up to Lismore through Thursday evening and into early Friday morning. These showers will be light along the New South Wales coastline, especially through the mid-north coast and then in towards the northeastern corner of New South Wales, and then showers moving into southeast Queensland through Friday morning. Rainfall not expected to be problematic through Thursday or Friday, showers continuing through Saturday and into Sunday, and in fact it's likely to be a wet weekend between Newcastle up to Coffs Harbour, with falls up to 50 millimetres expected between Saturday and Sunday around Kempsey and Taree. Showers, for the most part, are going to be coastal, so even throughout this forecast period, we're talking about rainfall pretty much exclusive to the coastline, which might make it into the mountains adjacent to the coastline in the mid-north coast and into the northeast, but especially around the Sydney area, rainfall is going to be exclusive to the coastline, so if you live away from the coastline, don't expect too much in the way of rainfall. Through Monday and Tuesday, there will be a few showers, and in fact, we could be seeing a line of showers move in through Tuesday and into Wednesday around the mid-north coast, and then in towards the southeastern parts of New South Wales, and then likely going to see a low-pressure system develop offshore from the New South Wales coastline between the 13th out to the 15th of May. This low pressure system will be short-lived. It's expected to move deeper into the Tasman through the 15th, that being Thursday, and into Friday next week, but it could bring some showers and even some heavier falls and maybe the odd storm or two through the central coast of New South Wales between Ulladulla up through Wollongong, Sydney and into Newcastle. Again, showers exclusive for the coastline. We're not expecting heavier falls inland. Rainfall continuing along the New South Wales coastline through next weekend, and then out towards the 19th and the 20th of May, rainfall is going to be here and there along the New South Wales coastline. So like I said, 14-day rainfall accumulations actually looking like something along the New South Wales coastline around the Sydney and the Wollongong area between 80 to 120 millimetres possible. The bulk of that coming through between Tuesday the 13th and Thursday the 15th of May, where about 50 or 60 millimetres can be expected on both days, and then falls between 80 to 150 millimetres expected between Newcastle up to Lismore or along the coastline adjacent to Lismore, with the heaviest falls expected between Kempsey and Coffs Harbour, and good congruency between the major forecast models as well. In fact, some likely heavier falls can be expected around the southeast Queensland area, so let's talk about those right now. Again, later on into the forecast period between the 13th out to the 15th of May, some steady rain can be expected through southeast Queensland, feeding into that low pressure system, and we'll likely see some heavier falls here and there around southeast Queensland as well later on into the forecast period. Plenty of moisture is expected to be lingering around southeast Queensland as we get later on into the forecast period, and that will give way to some healthy rainfall accumulations out there into the third week of May. So looking at the forecast now between the 13th out to the 20th of May, you can see rainfall accumulations between the Eastern Rev and the GFS forecast model pretty hell-bent on about 40 to 50 millimetres of rainfall through southeast Queensland along the coastline. The GFS actually calling for a little bit more rainfall than that, in places up to 150 millimetres of rainfall. Still is a long way out in the forecast, but definitely some showery conditions expected through southeast Queensland and New South Wales. Again, the majority of this rainfall is going to be around the coastline, so if you do live inland, don't get your hopes up for significant rainfall. Queensland might be a bit of a different story, but at this point in time, there's rainfall pretty much exclusive to the coastline, and that's kind of it. The Eastern Rev does a very good job at highlighting that aspect on the forecast. Whilst there could be a few drops penetrating further inland, rainfall will be by far at its heaviest along those coastal areas. Let's talk tropical now. Like I said, we have that rainfall streaming into the Whitsundays at this point in time, with the showery stuff coming in from the southeast, accompanied by some fresh winds out of the southeast as well, is what we're going to have to get used to over the next 2 weeks. So I just had a look earlier before I made this forecast update. That's why it's going to run a little bit late today, but the Madden-Julian Oscillation is expected to return over the Solomon Sea and then into the Coral Sea between the 10th to the 15th of May. Now, the Madden-Julian Oscillation is that high energy burst that we see develop tropical activity, including rainfall, tropical cyclones, and thunderstorms. It rotates anti-clockwise around the planet once every 40 days or so, and it is active through the winter periods, and that's why we get increases in cloud and tropical activity even through the winter months of July and August. But it's what really drives those massive rainfall events through, which happen on a cyclical basis, as you might be beginning to understand in far north Queensland. It happens on a cyclical basis because the Madden-Julian Oscillation is what drives those factors, and that is in its own right a cyclical system that moves through around the world's equator. Anyways, let's talk about what the Madden-Julian Oscillation is going to be driving up in towards far north Queensland, rather. Really getting scrambled up on the locations this forecast update. Southeasterly is expected to be driving some showers and rainfall ashore throughout the next couple of days. They're not expected to be heavy. A few showers and storms expected here into the Whitsundays. I've zoomed right out to encompass all of the Coral Sea, and you can see heaps of moisture expected out into the Coral Sea and into the Solomon Sea. Rainfall is going to be very hit and miss across far north Queensland, with the only hits really expected around the Cassowary Coast throughout the remainder of this working week and into the next weekend. We could be seeing falls up to 50 millimetres as we get out towards Saturday or Sunday. Cumulatively speaking, we're not expecting heavier falls on any particular day before a weak low pressure system is going to begin to develop sometime between the 10th out to the 12th of May into the Solomon Sea or over PNG. It's still very difficult to tell exactly where the system is going to be and exactly what we're expecting in terms of either a tropical low or just kind of a rainfall depression developing here. And whilst we are expecting a tropical low or rainfall depression to develop, it's going to remain well offshore from Australia, but it's still going to have some driving impacts, especially for far north Queensland. So the European model forecast, which you're looking at right now, has that tropical low / rainfall depression developing north of Arnhem Land over the Northern Territory into the Timor Sea, actually, whereas the GFS, in stark contrast, that has a low pressure system developing pretty much right over the top of PNG. Regardless of development of this system here, we're expecting a low pressure system at some point to develop in this general area here, north of the Northern Territory, north of the Gulf of Carpentaria, into the Timor Sea, and that's going to bring prevailing southeasterly winds through far north Queensland, especially as we get later on into the forecast period, where heavier falls can be expected between the 13th out to about the 19th of May. And you can see some pretty steady rainfall can be expected up in far north Queensland in that general time frame as well, from about Tuesday the 13th right through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, out to about the 19th or the 20th of May, when the rainfall will finally begin to drop off. At least that's what the long range forecast is suggesting at this point in time. But yeah, pretty significant jump in what we were looking at yesterday on the forecast rainfall. This is 10-day accumulations between Saturday the 10th of May out to Tuesday the 20th of May, so this is when we're expecting rainfall to be at its heaviest, and that's not including the expected 40 or 50 millimetres coming through over the next 4 or 5 days. So rainfall accumulations up along the Cassowary Coast could be as high as 250 millimetres, which for this time in May is a pretty significant helping of rainfall. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing to write home about, but it will be a pretty significant dump of rainfall for the month of May. We've been saying this for quite a while now. May is expected to be above average, and this rainfall here will definitely help tickle that kind of long-term average to sink below the actual rainfall that we get in far north Queensland this month. And even the Daintree rainforest not missing out on the triple figure rainfall accumulations, with up to 200 millimetres expected around Mossman as well. Again, we're talking about showers coming out of the southeast, so rainfall is going to be exclusive around the Cassowary Coast and into the mountains adjacent to the coastline, which is why Innisfail and Tully are both expecting triple figure rainfall accumulations, but locations further inland through the Atherton tablelands are seldom expecting more than about 30 or 40 millimetres. Cairns is also only expecting about 50 millimetres as well. Rainfall is normally blocked by the Yarra Peninsula for Cairns, especially when we were talking about winds and driving that rainfall out of the southeast, and that's why Cairns itself isn't expecting too much rainfall. And into the Hinchbrook Island area around Cardwell and Ingham, falls between 30 and 50 millimetres also look to be possible, and falls between 25 and 50 millimetres between Cardwell down to Rockhampton can also be expected in this 10-day forecast period. But if we expand this to include the next couple of days where we are expecting some showers to fall, that rises some rainfall accumulations up to about 75 millimetres. So it is going to be a pretty wet 2-week period with some miserable weather and some showery stuff streaming streaming through into the Whitsundays and into the central Queensland coastline, with about 5mm a day, give or take, with some dry days embedded over the next 14 days expected through parts of the Whitsundays and into the central Queensland coastline. Overall, not the best weather, especially for this time of the year when we are heading into the dry season. A lot of people really looking forward to some dry weather to be talking about across the Queensland coastline. So I'd hate to be the bearer of bad news on this forecast here, but we are still expecting that streams of rainfall to come through until at least late May at this point in time. The Mad Julian Oscillation, once it gets itself over the Indian Ocean, which will happen sometime around May the 18th out to about May the 20th, we'll likely see a big drop in the rainfall and a massive clearing of the skies. And when it returns again in early July, we're not expecting that to drive significant rainfall up and towards far north Queensland. I've panned out to the whole of Australia because there's not an awful lot going on. You can see 14-day rainfall accumulations, apart from along the east coast, are looking nothing, or absolutely nothing at all, especially across a vast expanse of Western Australia, parts of the Northern Territory and South Australia. And if we just take a look at the 10-day rainfall accumulations as well, you can see rainfall accumulations looking even drier. There's really nothing to be talking about at all in terms of the rainfall. Unfortunately for South Australia and Victoria, I'm praying desperately that we have something to be talking about for these locations that have been blasted by drought through South Australia and into Victoria. We're really looking out for some rainfall in these regions here. They desperately need it. They cannot come soon enough for these regions. And you can see, unfortunately, as we get out towards the 14-day or the 14th of May, the forecast out there for the drought, it's starting to expand into the exceptional and extreme categories through much of South Australia's coastal regions and then into Victoria. And these are, I guess, the grain basket through parts of southeastern Australia. This is where all of the agriculture happens. South Australia is a big state, but there's not a lot of arable land in the state of South Australia. So again, through the southeast and along the coast is basically where all of the arable land is, and unfortunately it's the land that is in extreme drought conditions. And it's the same deal for Victoria as well. And most of the arable land is currently under at least severe or exceptional drought conditions, with a lot of Victoria also under extreme drought conditions at this point in time. And even Tasmania, the rainfall cannot come soon enough for these regions. We desperately need it, that's for sure. And unfortunately there is nothing on the long range forecast, which is quite heartbreaking to see for these regions. Nothing else to be talking about in this forecast update, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Once again, if you're enjoying these forecast updates, please consider leaving a like and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. A special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. I could not run this show without them, and again, their support is much appreciated as well. Check out our Facebook page. There's a link in the description down below as well. We're nearing 12,000 followers over there, and plenty more to come over there, especially in regards to the lake air fill. More updates on that as well coming on the channel, and also a wet season wrap up coming in the next couple of days on the CyclonesOZ channel as well. So plenty to look forward to in this drier period across much of Australia, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.